We've still got another week before the year's final major. We got the Open Championship, the British Open. They prefer the Open Championship, so that's what I like to call it. But we got another week before that major coming up. So this week we've got it's a PGA Tour event, but it's not the most exciting field by any means. That does not mean that just because the field itself not quite as exciting as we could have doesn't mean we can't get excited about the John Deere Classic, because the bets pay out the same, sort of winning FanDuel lineup. So there's still plenty to talk about, plenty to break down. So welcome on into the FanDuel PGA Q&A for this week. I'm your host, Brandon Gdula. I'm the managing editor over at numberFire.com. I'll be talking about the field, the betting odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, the daily fantasy slate on FanDuel, my win simulation model, whatever else you want as well, because this is a Q&A format. So just hit up the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch if you have questions for this week's event, the John Deere Classic. I start, as I always do, looking at the field from a betting standpoint, just to get a feel for who we have this week. And as you can see here on FanDuel Sportsbook, Daniel Berger is the favorite at 9.5 to 1, followed by Brian Harman at 15 to 1, Russell Henley, Sung J M, both 17 to 1, Kevin Streelman's plus 1900, and then it's a drop to last week's winner, Cam Davis. Hopefully, I liked Cam Davis last week. Hopefully, you got in on some Cam Davis as well. But Joaquin Niemann came through. But I think that the most appealing aspect for Davis this week is, I know back-to-back winners are super rare, but it's a really similar setup to what we had last week in terms of the field and the scoring expectations, which I can get into. But then we kind of have a drop off right after Cam Davis, Siwoo Kim, Alex Noren. Then things start to fall off a little bit quicker. So it's really a top, 5 who are shorter than 20 to 1, and only 2 more for 7 total under 30 to 1. So pretty wide open field outside of Daniel Berger. And I know last week we saw Bryson DeChambeau, same thing applied to him. He was the favorite. He was the highest salaried golfer on FanDuel. He missed the cut. However, Bryson is a little more volatile than Daniel Berger in terms of scoring. Berger is one of the most consistent round-to-round scorers that we have on the PGA Tour. And actually, relative to this field, I have Daniel Berger as more likely to win at around 8% than I had Bryson last week to win at around 7%. So for me, I'm not necessarily looking at last week and saying Bryson missed the cut as the chalk, and so we can't play Daniel Berger. I think that's irrelevant. Daniel Berger, really good play, really consistent, pretty much green across the board from a statistical standpoint. But that's what we're looking at for the top of the field. Got some comments rolling in. Hello, everyone, from Mr. Jackie Moon on Twitch. What's up? Welcome on in. Get your questions ready, and hopefully you can learn some more about PGA this week as well. Comment from Charles on Facebook. First off, let me say thank you for hosting this for sure. I like hosting this. I like to share all the data that I have, all the findings that I get, because, I might not always have the right answers, but hopefully the process that I lay out can lead, everyone else to the things that I might be overlooking. I like to break down the course, things like the scoring, the depth of field to see how volatile we might have things. But that doesn't mean that the only plays that I would recommend are the plays that I talk about. So hopefully that kind of stuff leads you in, and then hopefully that lets you kind of figure out the tools that I use, the process that I kind of have, and go from there. So for sure, thanks for that comment, Charles. How is Berger a plus 950 from Charles? Well, I don't know if that means, I don't know if you're high or low on him. I think plus 950 is very fair for Daniel Berger, honestly, because he is the most likely golfer to win in my win simulations, which I can pull up real quickly just before I break down the course. So I'll go to my sim table. So I have Berger around 8% likely to win. It's not what you need him to be at, plus 950, but I don't think it's that egregious. And then if you look at him statistically, there is not really a reason to be concerned with Daniel Berger statistically. The best adjusted form over the past year. So my data adjusts for field strength and recency. So more recent rounds are weighted a little heavier than rounds that are almost a full year ago. Best tee to green golfer, just one of the best ball strikers in adjusted strokes gained off the tee and approach, one of the best putters and best birdie maker. So while he's a little overvalued from a betting standpoint, I think he's the best process play on FanDuel. So I know I have some more questions here, but I want to break down the course because I think that really dictates a lot for this week with the course itself and the field itself. So if you look on Data Golf and their field strength table, the John Deere Classic comes in as one of the weakest fields that we've had all season. The average golfer is a negative 0.7, which really means the average golfer in this field is almost a full stroke worse than kind of like a world average for the Korn Ferry Tour, the European Tour, the PGA Tour. So we're looking at a pretty weak field overall, which you can tell by looking at the just the field itself. We get a grasp on that based on how the win odds shake out, what the names at the top are. But that really means that we're going to have a little bit more volatility this week. And as we can see with the historical scoring, so we didn't have this event last year, but in years past, we see the winning scores go pretty low. Dylan Fratelli won at 21 under, Michael Kim 27 under, Bryson at 18 under, Ryan Moore 22 under, and then Jordan Spieth at 20 under. So we almost always see golfers flirting with that 20 under, which is what we saw last week. We've seen this a few weeks recently. And so anytime we get low scores, that leads to extra volatility. Because, and I use this example a lot, but just the simplest way to think about it is if a par 4 is birdieable for more of the field, that's going to level the playing field because the best golfers don't just automatically eagle par 4s because they're better. So it really comes down to like that par 4 scoring that the best golfers kind of lose their edge in events where scores go lower. We can look back at last week and look at the leaderboard and we see a lot of that same thing. And then speaking of that, we kind of have like a double whammy here where driving accuracy is more important at TPC Deere Run than it is on your average PGA Tour course. Driving distance not quite as important. So what that means is that the shorter hitters are not necessarily like disqualified from who we should be considering using. So that's going to naturally bring more players into relevance. So we have both of those things working this week where the best golfers kind of lose their edge because it's easier to score. And we have the more accurate hitters still in play, even if they're not long. So from that perspective, we have a lot of golfers in play for this week. So I got a lot coming through from Mr. Jackie Moon. I don't know enough about golf, so I usually just do small bets on it. Yeah, I think we talked last week. I mentioned top 10s, top 20s, maybe some smaller bets on outrights. Very appealing. You can also do some single entry tournaments on FanDuel. Single entry is always my favorite for just about any sport, but especially golf, because it gives you an advantage to be a little bit different. For example, last week, potentially fading Bryson, even though I liked Bryson, in the event he missed the cut, which he did, and was on more than half of all lineups, then you get a lot of leverage. So you don't have to go too hard at PGA to kind of get some leverage. I think from a single entry standpoint, just being a little bit different, or again, those top 10s, top 20 markets can be really profitable without being sort of all or nothing. Question from how I do 4242 JJ Spawn. JJ Spawn, not a name I expected to hear because I haven't looked at him. I'm actually going to pull him up. Yeah, on Data Golf's True Strokes query. So if we look at him over the past 6 months, 111th in this field and their version of adjusted strokes gained. Again, I haven't looked at JJ Spawn in quite some time, so I'm not seeing a whole lot here. 32nd at the Rocket Mortgage, 47th at the Travelers. So I do think that those are interesting because those two courses are somewhat similar in the sense that they're both shorter to average length courses with small bent grass greens. So you do kind of have that overlap. So I'm actually putting a little more weight into super recent form than I would otherwise. But for me, I'm not there with JJ Spawn just because the longer term sample is not good enough. And a few recent rounds don't necessarily outweigh a larger sample that tells us otherwise. So for me, no JJ Spawn, but I do kind of see the point with the recent made cuts for him. Question on YouTube from Clint. Who are my value picks? So my value picks this week are kind of plentiful in a sense, just because I don't usually go super value heavy, but there are a few names that stand out specifically because the low 9,000 range doesn't do a whole lot for me. So I'll throw up a few names that I do like. Steve Stricker is one. His sample's not going to be super complete because he plays a lot on the Champions Tour. Roger Sloan, if this will populate. Who else am I liking? Adam Schenk, actually. I'll leave it at these three, but I'll name a few others. Steve Stricker, so he's actually in his past 5 Champions Tour events. He's got 2 wins, a runner-up, a 7th, and an 11th. If you look at him on the PGA Tour, which I'll do on Data Golf, because this is kind of interesting because, I mean, he's 54 years old, but Stricker has won here 3 times in a row, 2009 to 2011. And if you look at we don't have that granular strokes gain data from him on the Champions Tour, but we still see him, gaining some strokes for the most part. But whenever you have like a 7th and you weight it for the field strength of a Champions Tour event, you're not really going to gain strokes. But even with that, we see some really good numbers for him with these wins. And then what really kind of makes me feel good with Stricker this week is looking at the iron play in the PGA Championship when he gained almost a stroke per round when it's adjusted for field strength. Same thing at the Honda. Missed the cut at the Players, but that's notoriously volatile, and he actually lost strokes putting, so that's a little bit abnormal for him. But I think Stricker, very interesting. Roger Sloan as well. Good iron play. I have him in the 77th percentile in adjusted strokes gained approach over the past year, adjusting for field strength and recency. Good bent grass putter, 81st percentile there. Not the best birdie maker necessarily, but that's enough for me at 8,700 to like Roger Sloan. And then Adam Schenk kind of has the right profile as like I always hate calling pro golfers punt plays, but at 7,700, there are going to be some concerns, some red flags. We do see him subpar in terms of just his overall adjusted strokes gained average relative to a world average, which is what this is trying to show per round. But the thing that makes me feel good with someone like taking a shot on Adam Schenk is that he does struggle around the green, and that's not super relevant in a birdie fest because if you're relying on your wedges to get up and down for par, you're not making enough birdies to be relevant anyway. And so at that point, it's like, well, if the other things that point us to Schenk, such as the 82nd percentile ball striking in both of those stats, the pretty solid putting, or at least not terrible putting, but it's better on bent grass, like that's the right kind of profile. It's going to keep the wedges are going to keep his salary down. But once we get to an event that does let him make some birdies with the ball striking and the putter, that's whenever we can take a shot there. So I think these 3 are probably some standouts for me. I also like Pat Perez. Mito Pereira has 3 wins in the Korn Ferry Tour. Missed the cut last week with some solid data. Gained about half a stroke, I think, in total, or 1 stroke, tee to green. Didn't putt very well. But those are some of the names that I'm looking at most from a value standpoint. Jackie Moon, I like to make the cut bets. Those are always fun. Top 20s, top 30s. Like it's fun, and it's a way to get exposure without having it be all or nothing, which I always get a little out over my skis with going for those outrights. I guess a comment from Ed from Facebook, Henley and Harmon. So Henley is super appealing to me, and so is Brian Harmon. Harmon has a win here. But Henley here, the best long-term adjusted irons in the field, 100th percentile there. 69th percentile off the tee, which is nice enough for this week. But what these 2 golfers really benefit from is the setup this week where distance is not a must. And that's where they struggle, that they get red flags and driving distance gained over the past 100 rounds, according to Fantasy National. But where they do pick up strokes is by being so accurate. And that is going to keep them in contention for this week. So Daniel Berger is my favorite process-based play for the week. It's not really a stretch to say that that's the case. But for me, Russell Henley is the number one pivot. I have no issues with Brian Harmon. I do like Siwoo Kim as well. Virtually, like just lots of green dots here, which is what you want to see, and minimal red flags again. And it's forgivable in these areas of driving distance gain. So Siwoo Kim as well, 98th percentile adjusted tee to green. So we have a lot of ways to pivot away from Daniel Berger. And I know it's kind of weird because I was talking about how the field strength is pretty weak overall. And it is. And we have one favorite with Daniel Berger, but these other guys they can make a case. Like, you can make a case for them, whether it's a bet. I like Siwoo Kim at 28-1. I like Russell Henley at 17-1, even if my win simulation model might not be showing a ton of positive value or actually showing negative value. But you can make a case for these guys. So that's what I was saying at the top of the show, where it's not the most exciting field. I know we're going to kind of have our eyes on the Open next week, but there are ways to kind of exploit that from a daily fantasy standpoint. If we just want to fade Daniel Berger, think that he might have his own eyes set on the Open for next week. But, it's a pretty solid second tier. I kind of have Berger in his own tier, all things considered. But the second tier, pretty strong as well. But I'm in on Henley and Harmon, so great call there, Ed. Question from DJ from Facebook. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Vegas, Patton Kizzire, and Zach Johnson? So I'll pull them up on the Finder here. I'm not going to spell Jonathan because I still cannot. I try. I cannot commit it to memory. Kizzire and Zach Johnson. So I'll start with Johnson because he's my favorite of those three. We're looking at all these guys in similar salary ranges, similar win odds as well. The best kind of value from a win odds versus salary standpoint would be Vegas, because he's 36-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook and only 9,800 with his salary on FanDuel. But I'm going to start with Johnson because he's my favorite of those three. Former winner here, really good results for ZJ at a course like this, and a pretty good golfer once you adjust for the fields he plays in. Now, he has missed 4 cuts recently. 3 of those, though, were at majors, which is more forgivable. And that's why you can't just look at the number of made cuts because they're not all equal. And we know that Zach Johnson at this point in his career, he's not irrelevant in majors necessarily, but doesn't really have the distance, 13th percentile in this field, which is, saying something. So it's not even like better than 13th percentile in a field this week. So he's not long off the tee. So we can forgive those missed cuts at majors. He's more accurate than he is long, which we know. But the irons have been good, 82nd percentile. And the short game, the best long-term putter in the field, some of the best wedges, which I know wedges are not going to make birdies, but it's never bad to see a green light in any of these key stats for the week. Great on bent grass with the putter. So I like Zach Johnson, both as a bet and on FanDuel, as kind of a building block for this week. Kizzire, not a whole lot of issues, really good with the approach for him, which is why he's been relevant for a while. Great birdie maker, which you can also say about Vegas. Great putter as well. So it's a good recipe for birdies. If he can just hit fairways, which is possibly the issue, 14th percentile. If he can hit fairways, he's got the irons working for him, and he's got a good putter. Not necessarily on bent grass. He takes us a little bit of a step back, but it's still a positive putter on bent grass, gaining around 0.11 strokes per round. For me, Vegas is kind of always in play in a birdie fest because of just this number here. And he can gain distance. He's not necessarily going to gain fairways. He might, but he's long enough to gain strokes off the tee. And tee to green overall, the irons are solid. So, he's always going to have some red flags, specifically with the putter, but he can also kind of overcome that and make up for it with making birdies anyway. So I don't mind Vegas. I'm not quite there. I actually, at a similar salary, prefer Hank Lebiota. There's going to be kind of a good amount of overlap overall, virtually identical adjusted overall strokes gained for them over the past year. But a better putter is Lee Biota, better irons for him as well, and just fewer questions with the short game, and a little bit more of someone who's going to benefit from playing TPC Deer Run, where the distance is only going to get you so far. And so, Lee Biota doesn't lose so much off the tee. So I prefer Lee Biota, but I would never, ever talk anyone out of Vegas at a place where we need to go low. So I think I'm all caught up on questions and comments. So I'm going to jump over now to my win simulations and just talk about who's most likely to win based on my win simulations, which are put together from a little bit of a course adjustment, but primarily every golfer's long-term adjusted just form. So it's their strokes gained, adjusted for every field they play in, and adjusted for recency. So the more recent rounds are weighted a little more heavier than the rounds almost a full year ago. And this is what I get for the week. Daniel Berger, 7.9% likely to win in my simulations. Brian Harman, 5.3%. Russell Henley, 4.4%. So, we had that pointed out. I think it was Ed. Yes, Henley and Harman. So there's your Henley and Harman rating out just behind Berger in my win simulations. Now, it is a pretty sizable gap, especially for Henley, but we know that Henley has the irons. Now, they're not necessarily rating out as good expected values, but I don't always only let my model dictate my decisions because that assumes the model's perfect. It's very likely not. And sometimes you get tempted by opportunities that, you might see, you might say, like, there's more reason to like Russell Henley than the model even suggests, which Henley almost always is undervalued by the betting market. But in a field like this, he's getting a lot of love kind of by default. So for once, Russell Henley, not a positive expected value, but we do see that with Steve Stricker, almost with Zach Johnson, and with Doug Gim. So I already talked about Stricker and Johnson, former winners here. Stricker done it 3 times in a row, but they fit. Doug Gim is really tempting just because he's so good tee to green, but the putter's really bad. So he needs to get to like baseline level, which he has been on bent grass, and that's kind of the saving grace for this week. Look at all these green dots for him in birdies, 82nd percentile, irons 96th, tee to green 97th, red flag and putting. But again, it gets better on bent grass for this, for this setup. And we saw him gain 0.9 strokes last week on bent grass, but the tee to green wasn't there for once, which was a little bit disappointing. But I like Doug Gim, and so does the model for this week. Question from Mr. Jackie Moon on Twitch. Will Bubba Watson ever win a major tournament again? I hope so. I love Bubba. He's become one of my favorite golfers. We know he has the distance. I would probably say no, but I would really love for him to get another because he's really fun on and off the course. I know that not everyone feels that way, but he's really come out a lot more and has spoken about his perception of things. So I hope so. I would guess no, but I want him to. I can say that much. John Daly is my all-time favorite. John Daly is a little bit before my time. I'm aware of him from a meme standpoint, but not necessarily from watching him golf himself. But I am trying to go back through the archives more, learn a little bit more about golf history. But back to the win simulations here. Lucas Glover rates out positively. Harold Varner is a fair value. Sebastian Munoz has missed a lot of cuts, but makes sense to do well at a course like this just because he can make birdies. I'm not interested in Charles Howell, really Ches Reavie. Danny McCarthy, long shot here at 140 to 1. I think fine. So this is a perfect example for Mr. Jackie Moon, where this would be like a top 20 instead of an outright for me. So I'm in on McCarthy to a degree, but not necessarily for an outright for this week. Pat Perez, you can definitely talk me into. I like him. And Roger Sloan in even value. but I can pull up Perez because he's a good value play as well for me. He's just to that point in his career where we're looking at, can he hit fairways and still contend at TPC Deere Run? Yes. And that's the case, that he gets this week. And then also he's on bent grass for the week where he's a very good putter, 93rd percentile in bent grass putting over the past 100 rounds. And the irons are still there. So I think Perez, another good value option for this week. Question from Revokes on YouTube, Jonas Blixt. Another name I have not looked at in quite some time. He is, over the past 6 months, 105th in Data Golf's true strokes gained. Riding kind of a hot putter for him, 47th off the tee. Let's see the event by event for him. This is a great tool, by the way. Their Data Golf's true strokes gain query, and then you can just look at an event by event catalog for them for each golfer. Lots of missed cuts here. 36th of the so again, two kind of broke the string of missed cuts with 2 made cuts at courses that should play a little bit similarly to what we have this week, just from a distance, small greens, bent grass standpoint. So I could see it from that case, but for me, the long term always wins out over the short term. So I'm not quite going to get there because the long term is a bit too bad with the iron play. If I ever see bad iron play over a larger sample, I just don't have a whole lot of interest because it's golf. We have a ton of other options. So for me, no Blixt for this week. Another question from Brian on Facebook. Kramer, Cosmo Kramer or Kramer Hickok. So I like Hickok a bit because he's good tee to green over the past 6 months. That question mark does come in with the approach play. But the recent sample, of course, is going to show some spike weeks here, some good finishes. Obviously, that runner-up at the Travelers, which he did with really good putting, and that's a concern. You don't want to see, well, I don't want to say you don't want to see good putting. You want to see good putting. You don't want to see good putting mask poor iron play, and that's kind of what we see. And then, 58th, so another made cut. Again, the kind of corollary courses, I think you can make the case. And also the Charles Schwab would fit that criteria as well. So I like Hickok just fine. He's not someone I'm prioritizing, but I see the case for it. And, the iron play, not quite as good as I want it to be long-term, but I do see the case overall. So I'm going to bring on Jim as he's logging on because he's going to be talking about the MLB slate. But Mr. Jackie Moon's asking, is women's golf on FanDuel Sportsbook often? I was going to throw some down on Michelle Wee if she still golfs. Yeah, she just came back. As a kid, I thought she was going to be the GOAT of women's golf. Yeah, there are sportsbook odds whenever there is an LPGA event on FanDuel Sportsbook. I've been running some simulations myself for the LPGA Tour, trying to do some adjustments for field strength. Now, it's unfortunately the data availability for the LPGA Tour is supposed to get a lot better soon, but right now it's very, very, very basic. So I'm looking more at just round by round scoring and trying to adjust that. So it is there for majors. I will be posting my win simulations on numberFire.com. I can talk, once we get major weeks for the LPGA, but we do have it on FanDuel Sportsbook, and I'm honestly getting to be a pretty big fan of the LPGA Tour because they're smooth. Their smooth swings, just really, really engaging to watch. I don't know if Jim's coming on. I gave him the green light. There we go.
No.
Okay.
You didn't mention you're going to have stuff for the Olympics too, for women's golf and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah. It's going to be a great Olympics for both the men and the women. Playing the same course, which is cool.
Okay.
The women will play the week after the men. That's always fun. The rare opportunities that we get that. I'd love to see the women play like a lot more of the men's courses, but honestly, LPGA golf is super engaging.
Yeah, I think the Olympics should be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be exciting both on the men's and women's side. I think we'll have some probably DFS for that, I'd assume. So we'll be talking about that at some point in the heat check. But Brandon, before then, did you get the memo that the Clippers lost or no? Because you're wearing a Clippers hat, and I feel like am I like breaking some bad news to you now, or what's going on here?
So a few things here.
Uh-huh.
One, I'm not a Clippers fan.
What?
I'm not a Clippers fan. I wear hats.
We talk for 2 minutes every week. How would I know this about you? Come on.
So I'm not a Clippers fan.
Do you not have like a Suns hat? The Suns have great colors. Why don't you have a Suns hat?
I only have so many hats. I gotta win more from you. Which, by the way, what I was getting to is I won this hat from you for beating you for our season-long PGA contest. So I don't know why you actually even drew attention to it, because you knew you were trying to get one in on me, hand me an L, but
I was not trying to hand you an L. I was trying to inform you. I thought that you didn't know. It's not like you do any content for the NBA. Maybe you didn't know. I don't know.
Well, I'm
trying to help.
Look, I got hats all over the place.
Do you have a Bucks hat?
No, but I have a Bucks shirt, which I don't like. It's too gray and washed out. It's weird.
I don't have anything here. I've got nothing. I have a Miami Marlins Giancarlo Stanton jersey that is orange. That might pass for Suns. Does that count?
I don't think so, because they're different.
In theory. But they're both orange, so I feel like it's potato.
I used to have a Charles Barkley.
I could wear.
I used to have a Charles Barkley Suns jersey way back in the day.
Was it the purple?
I think it might have been white.
Okay, well, work on it. I'm expecting for next week a full maybe Suns hat and then the Bucks shirt. I think that's what I would have to request, person. Now that I'm putting in requests for your wardrobe.
I mean, you can send me some stuff if you'd like.
I'm not going to, because I'm going to win the bobble hat this year, just like I did this past week. That is Brandon Gdula. Check him out on Twitter at Gdula13. Also, if you want more PGA talk, check out the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Thank you to Brandon. Back with us once again next week on Tuesday for the Open. So that'll be a lot of fun for then. But for right now, let's talk some MLB DFS. No matter where you're watching, you can get your questions in for today to get set for this slate of MLB DFS. Whether you're watching on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, get those questions in. We'll take them live here on air to get you set for tonight's 14-game main slate of MLB DFS. And this one, to me, is all about Jacob deGrom. We were on board with deGrom last week, even though he was facing the Braves. It was the second time he was facing them in a 2-star span. He was on the road, but he was still really freaking good. And now he's at home against the Brewers. So to me, my mindset is plug in deGrom first. Actually, let's just do this. I'm not going to take him out for the entire show. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Either way, we're going to put him in there just so we know we're working with 2,900 left to work with. And Alvin mentions on YouTube that all the teams we want to stack for today have their lineups out. How great. It is great, Alvin. However, the Rangers lineup kind of sucks. And so it's great that we know who they're using, but it sucks because they're using not ideal guys. So let's pull up the Rangers lineup over here and show you why I am upset, distraught, irate about this. Not really. That's fine. They're all big leaguers, but I think Nate Lowe is great. We can put Nate Lowe in there. We can feel good about him. Then if you look at the rest of their lineup, they're only a couple guys I realistically want to use. I don't want to use Brock Holt. His ISO versus righties is 103. That's no. I don't want that. Nate Lowe, good. Adolis Garcia, good. Joey Gallo, good. John Hicks had a 165 ISO in AAA, and that's fine. And he's been really good in the majors, but he's batting fifth. He's a righty. We prefer lefties against Jose Urena. I would have preferred Jonah Heim had played once again for today. It's not. It's John Hicks. Also, if we use John Hicks, we're burning our utility slot because I want Lowe in there for sure. So if I decide to go with Hicks here at $2,400, I've got that. And it means that if I go with Gallo and Garcia, we're at 2,700 left. I need a second value stack in there. So I still like the Rangers. I still think, especially if you go with a 3-player stack of Lowe, Gallo, and Garcia, you're sitting pretty good. And I feel good about that. It's just not as good as I was hoping it would be. I do want to look at David Dahl, 153 ISO. It's not great. It's not terrible though. It's lower than Heim, who I was hoping would be in there again. But it can work. He's batting 6th. I think he's $2,400. Maybe you go with him over Hicks to leave yourself the extra flexibility. But like either way, it's not ideal the way the lineup broke. So Alvin, it's good that the lineups are out. It's bad that the Rangers is not ideal. So we'll see. We can find some value elsewhere. But the Rangers, I'm disappointed, I guess is what I would say. I'm not mad, disappointed in the Rangers lineup for today. DJ, is Seth Brown worth a look for the Oakland A's? Let's check out the A's over here. Brown doesn't always play, so I want to see their lineup. Facing Framber Valdez. I don't like using guys facing Valdez because he allows like a negative fly ball rate. It is 15% over his 7 starts. We're not getting a lot of upside there. So Seth Brown, not a guy I'd be looking towards for today. Kyle, with the Rangers lineup out, who are you prioritizing and staying away from? Not a lineup I've used much this year, so I appreciate the help. Yeah, good question, Kyle. As mentioned, they kind of suck. So I'm disappointed. I mentioned, like, if I were making a list of guys I will in theory use, Lowe is there, Garcia's there, Gala's there. I will use Hicks in theory. I will use Dahl in theory. Let's check out Andy Ibanez. Doesn't play every day, so our sample on him versus righties is not super expansive. 48 plate appearances, a negative 26 WRC plus, 067 ISO. He does put the ball in the air. Let's check out the expected stats here for Ibanez because it is such a small sample and see what we're cooking with here. The expected 278 WOBA, 078 ISO. In AAA, he had better numbers, a 295 ISO. We can work with that. But 28 years old, just coming to the big leagues now. The projection system's not super optimistic about his ISO overall, and that includes number versus lefties, not just righties. Don't really want to use Ibanez. Nick Solak, let's see what his numbers are versus righties. 136 ISO. Connor Falefa batting 9th. He does get steals, but like, it's rough. So if I'm making a list of guys I will use or I'm okay using, I would say Lowe, Garcia, Gallo, and then if I have to, Hicks and Dahl, but like everything else is just gross. So Kyle, I wish we could have gotten Heim and White in there because both those guys are guys I was willing to use. They're not there though, and I'm disappointed. So they are lower on my list. Michael on YouTube says, Brandon said stack the Phillies tonight, and Brandon says my Phillies. Facing Jake Arrieta, I agree. So Brandon, we won't fight this time. I'm on board with stacking the Phillies for today. And as Alvin mentioned, their lineup is out. Part of the reason we want to stack the Phillies for today is that the weather pretty decent for hitting for today. It's not like an insane situation for hitting, but wind is at 11 miles per hour. Wind being out of Wrigley is always good. 85 degrees, 59% humidity. That's always great. So I will definitely be on board with stacking the Phillies for today. Let's pull up their lineup over here. We've got Segura batting leadoff now. They did move. So no Odubel Herrera today. Realmuto second, Harper, McCutchen, Hoskins, Didi's in there. Travis Jankowski is batting 8th. I don't like using guys batting 8th in a National League team because they're right in front of the pitcher, and that does cap upside quite a bit. So I think that this is a fine lineup. I think that Gregorius definitely works. Not having Herrera in there is a bummer because it's one less guy I really actively want to use on this team. But let's check out the Phillies here and see what we can build with them. We're going to keep DeGrom in there because I think I can stack them pretty easily with DeGrom for today. Let's go over to the Phillies and let's refresh this because why not? We'll pull up the lineup in there. Didi's going to be in there. He's been great since he came back from the injured list, so no concerns about using him off the injured list. So definitely going to put him in there first. Also Phil's shortstop, which has been a tougher position in general. We're going to go with Bryce as well. Then we're deciding between McCutchen, the two catchers / first baseman, and Segura. Bohm is not really a guy I tend to use versus righties. Let's double check that, though, to make sure I'm not writing him off prematurely. Alec Bohm versus righties, 077 ISO, no thanks. Hoskins, 214. McCutchen, 146. Realmuto, 190. So based on that, it feels like it would be Hoskins, Realmuto, McCutchen, the ranking of those guys. Let's pull up the salaries here on them. Realmuto is $3,000. We have Hoskins at $32,000, McCutchen at $2,900, So I think we can go with probably just the top two guys here. If we do this stack with the Phillies, we get Harper in there. 2675 is not super easy to work with, but I think we can make it work as long as we're willing to make some consolations at some point. I will note that the Phillies probably will not mesh super well with the Rangers just because we want to use the value plays at catcher / first base for the Rangers, and we want to use Hoskins and Real Muto on the Phillies. If we take those guys out and decide to go with McCutchen instead of them, that gets us to 2,800 left. We can go with Hicks and go with Lowe. Maybe you can get either Garcia or Gallo in there. That could work for sure, but I think that the Rangers work best as a 3-player stack. The Phillies I can get to 4. It just depends on what your second stack is with them. So let's go back to these two guys here. Segura, numbers versus righties, a 103 ISO, does have 5 stolen bases. There's at least a path to upside there. That could work. Let's check out Jankowski's numbers. Maybe I can justify him. 24 plate appearances, not a big sample. Let's pull up his actual player page here and dig a bit deeper into what he has done so far this year. Let's pull that up too. And when he's in the minors, not a lot of power, so I'm pretty skeptical of the power he has shown so far in the majors. The expected numbers good across 30 plate appearances, but it's just 30 plate appearances. So not really looking to go with Jankowski there. So I think this is probably my favorite 4-player stack in the Phillies. It does leave you a bit shorthanded, but I want to get Gregorius and Harper in there for sure. They are the top 2 priorities here. Then ranking the others, it's Hoskins, Real Muto, McCutchen, then Segura on the Phillies for today. Jackie says, is the Yankees lineup out? So the Yankees are, I think they're a late game, correct? Yeah, facing Justice Sheffield. They're a team that I'm willing to stack for today. No lineup for them because they're on the West Coast. But if we take a look at the projected order for the Yankees, let's do that over here. Oh no, they get lopped off. Tragic. So let's just go here. A little shortcut here. And we'll go with the Yankees as a team, and we'll check out their projected order. Luke Voigt is $2,800. There is a healthy amount of value there. I like that. Gio Urshela, $2,800. I like that as well. That definitely works. Miguel Andujar, he wasn't hitting for a ton of power initially, especially his numbers versus lefties to open this year when he first came back up were pretty bad, honestly. He was doing better versus righties at that point, but obviously platoon splits are fluky in small samples. Let's refresh these here and see what Andujar's done versus lefties now with a larger sample. Andujar versus lefties, 117 ISO, 30% fly ball rate. If he hits at a good enough spot in the order, I can get behind that. Obviously, Gary Sanchez, depending on where he bats, would work as well. So I think the Yankees are a place you can turn for some value for today. Jackie also reminding everyone that Dinger Tuesday is today. You can always bring up home run props. I'm down to talk homer props. Feel free to pop them in the chat if you have a number, and we can talk about that batter for sure. So yes, Dinger Tuesday. Do not forget over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Jonathan, is Dominic Smith a good play for today? Okay, so we got the Mets going up against Brett Anderson. Anderson's a lefty. I don't tend to use Dominic Smith versus lefties, but I don't want to write him off. Let's check out the actual numbers here and see if that sentiment against Smith is legitimate. 71 plate appearances versus lefties, 159 ISO, 24% fly ball rate. Or sorry, an 19% fly ball rate. So no, Smith's probably not someone I would use for today, just because I think we'll have better options. Lefty on lefty is not a spot where I tend to go at Dominic Smith. Jackie is asking for the best value pitcher for today. I think it's 2, and it depends on your style of play. If you are someone who wants safety, go Ian Anderson. He's facing the Pirates for today. Anderson's a very good real-world pitcher. Not quite like he's not in the Kyle Hendricks tier yet, but he's in that mold where he's a really good real world pitcher. And sometimes I can overlook that. The reason I'm not super high on him from a ceiling perspective is because in his 8 starts with less forcing fastball movement, his strikeout rate is 24%. The Pirates not a super high strikeout team. Anderson can have pop games, so I'm not saying he has no ceiling, but I think that his odds of having a ceiling game are lower. So if you want safety, go Anderson. If you want ceiling, I kind of don't hate the idea of using John Gray. The numbers I have for John Gray on here are his 2 starts since coming off the injured list. And then the reason I'm going with those 2 is because his velocity is up in those 2 starts. 3.20 skill interactive ERA, 33% strikeout rate. The roof is closed for tonight at Chase Field. That's a good thing for him too. The Diamondbacks obviously not the best team offensively this year. 83 WRC plus, 25% strikeout rate. We can use pitchers against that. So it's very risky to use John Gray. He was not that great before he got hurt, but I think the numbers since he came back, he had 10 strikeouts in one of those games. Obviously a good matchup versus Milwaukee, but Arizona's a good matchup too. So I am okay with using John Gray for today. It is not safe. It is very scary, but hey, we're going to do it anyway. So if you want a value play, I think that John Gray is the one I prefer based on my play style, but I know some people not as willing to take on risk as I am. I love risk personally. If there's upside to boot, I think there is with John Gray. So to me, John Gray is the best value play, but Ian Anderson is the safer route if you want to go that way. Mateo, besides DeGrom, who do you like? Just went through that there. I think that Anderson and Gray are the top 2 guys. And a lot of that is because the other good, quote unquote, good pitchers in the pool for today are in really rough situations. So let's go over here and check out the pitching pool for today. I love Carlos Rodon. He's amazing. However, he's facing the Twins for a second consecutive start. There's potentially rain in the forecast. Kevin Roth seemed to think that there would be a potential delay for this one. Late start would be fine. Late starts are okay for pitchers, but there's risk there. So that's kind of scary. Nathan Eovaldi, not the biggest strikeout guy on the road, facing a lower strikeout team. We've got Framber Valdez facing a good team. Aaron Nola on the road facing the Cubs. He tends to have pretty extreme home road splits. Chris Bassett facing the Astros. Jose Berrios facing the White Sox. Pablo Lopez facing the Dodgers. It's a lot of pitchers in tough situations. So I think for me, I'd rather spend down if not going with DeGrom for today, and that means going to Anderson and going to John Gray. I think Luis Castillo is a consideration, is what I would phrase for him. DJ, would you stack against Spencer Watkins on Baltimore, and which Marlins are safe to stack against Gonsolin? First, with the Gonsolin one, I would not stack the Marlins. Roof should be shut for today. Gonsolin gets enough strikeouts, doesn't let up a ton of balls in play, so I'm not looking to stack the Marlins for today. As far as the Blue Jays one, Watkins is probably going to go like an inning. He went an inning on July 2nd, I think it was, the first time he pitched. He's like a 28-year-old guy who made his big league debut. It's a really cool story to see him up in the big leagues now, but I'd expect this to be more of a bullpen game than a Spencer Watkins start for the Orioles. He's starting, but I think it's more of like a bullpen game. And the Orioles bullpen is not bad. The numbers I have here are their active roster numbers. A 4.17 ERA. It's not skill interactive ERA. It's ERA for a bullpen game. 4.17 ERA, 26% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate. Not the worst contact profile. So the Blue Jays have a massive implied total for today. I think it's like 6.66 because they are flirting with the devil, apparently. And that means they're probably going to be very popular. If I had to guess, I am likely to be underweight on them. Oh, it's 5.96. Thought it was higher than that. Anyway, I'm probably going to be underweight on them relative to the field just because I think the Orioles bullpen is better than that. And I expect that Watkins will probably just go like an inning or so. They had a bullpen game. It was a game that Lakins started, I think, last week at some point against the Astros. They let up 3 runs across 9 innings. So I'm okay being underweight on the Blue Jays for today, just because I respect the Orioles bullpen a little bit more than that. Alvin, would you rather a 3-player stack from Cincinnati or Texas? Let's pull up Cincinnati's lineup here and see what we're cooking with there. I got India back in the lineup. Stevenson leadoff. Castellanos, Suarez, Aristides Aquino, Tyler Naquin against the lefty. Kyle Farmer batting 8th. I think I'd rather go with the Reds there. Chris Bubich, definitely a guy I'm willing to stack against. The numbers I have on Bubich are, since he joined the rotation the first time back in May, 5.03 skill interactive ERA, a lot of hard contact, not enough ground balls to cancel that stuff out. Obviously, the Reds better versus righties and lefties, but still, I think they're a good team to stack for today. So let's pull this up here and build out a Red stack quickly. I'm going to go with Stevenson first because we can save a lot of salary there. Aristides Aquino, talked about this morning. I am less concerned about him leaving the game when they have a DH than when they're in the National League. No double switches and stuff like that. So we go with Stevenson and Aquino. That's looking pretty good there. Let's put in Nick Castellanos for the upside, and probably Eugenio Suarez would be the fourth guy of the stack. It's between him and India. Let's check this out here and see which guy we should prefer between those two. I know Suarez still strikes out a bunch versus lefties, but I believe there's been enough power there for me to feel good about it. 136 ISO, lower than I thought, but India's at 105. So I will prefer Suarez between the two. Also a little bit lower salary, which does help. So let's go Suarez here at shortstop. That gets us $2,900 left. We can probably make that work with the Philly stack. So I think I'd rather stack the Reds straight up, and I'd rather stack them for a 3-player stack and feel pretty good about that. So that's where I'm at, Alvin. Give me the Reds over Texas for today. Brandon, question, can I add the conditional formatting on that Google sheet? No, I am here to burn your eyes, and there will be no other way, and you will like it. That is all I have to say. Also, in case anyone wants it, here is tomorrow's numbers. A lot of starters still not known, but if you want it, there are tomorrow's numbers in case you want to screenshot that with the conditional formatting as it is, just for Brandon's eyes. Let's talk to Jackie Moon, talking Stanton, Harper, or Didi for a home run. Relative to odds, I'm guessing Didi would be your best bet there. He's been outstanding since he came back from the IL, so I think if you're deciding between those guys, if you're actually betting Jackie, I would say go with Didi Gregorius there. Should be a good option from a betting perspective. Also, I'd check out Tyler Stevenson and Aristides Aquino as guys who might be a bit undervalued in the home run prop market for today. Clint is asking Merrill Kelly, ? I think this is at least worth asking. So I'm glad you asked, Clint, and I do want to dig into him a bit deeper. So let's pull up Merrill Kelly's numbers. My goodness. I don't know if I'm linking to the wrong person or if Google is just jacking it up here. Let's see. Is this Kelly? That's still Shohei Ohtani. Did I link to it wrong? Whatever. Anyway, let's go to Merrill Kelly manually, the old person way, actually typing it out here as opposed to the links that are supposed to be in the sheet. I don't know if I just messed it up or what, but anyway, let's go to Merrill Kelly. The numbers I have on Kelly are over his past 7 starts with fewer sinkers. Okay. So we'll go over to his game logs here. And this is okay. So the sinker usage down starting on May 31st. So let's go to that, and let's actually look at the game logs here. He has not faced Colorado in that time. Did have 5, 5, and 7 strikeouts. Those are pretty good, and the last time out is against San Francisco. Really good offense versus righties, especially when you put them outside of San Francisco. It's the second time facing him as well. He's been pretty good. So honestly, Clint, I don't think that's a bad idea. I would consider Merrill Kelly, especially because I don't think there's any surefire, no-brainer other option today outside of DeGrom. So I think that Kelly works. I probably won't get there myself, but I think that he is definitely worth consideration. $8,800 is a little bit much, but given the matchup, I think that's okay. So Clint, I think that thumbs up for me on Merrill Kelly if you want to use it. Michael, are Texas, Philly, and Cincinnati still your top 3 stacks? Texas has been jettisoned off the face of the planet based on their lineup. So they're going to be, let's go with Philly 1, Cincinnati 2. I guess I should probably put the Blue Jays above them. The Braves lineup isn't bad, so I'll go Braves 3, Rangers 4, Yankees 5, Blue Jays 6. So some shuffling around there, Michael, just because the Rangers lineup was so bad. I like the Phillies lineup despite there being no Odubel Herrera. And I do like the Braves lineup for today as well. So the Rangers got moved down. I'll put Braves 3rd, Rangers 4th based on the lineups for today. Let's talk to Jason. Hey, Jim, hope you had a great 4th. Did. Thank you very much, Jason. Hope you did too. Although you have a Blue Jays hat on, so maybe happy Canada Day belated to you, Jason. Who knows? Do you like the Phillies today? Yes, very much so. They are my top stack as of right now. I think that they are tremendous. Jackie Moon asking about Nick Matone for the Phillies not playing for today, so I would omit him. Let's talk to Austin. What's up, Austin Swaim over on Twitch? What's up? What's up, Austin? How's it going? Just curious what your thoughts are on the Nats for tonight. I know you were down to stack against Weathers last week, but is their offense too bad on a 15-game slate? You phrased it correctly. Their offense is bad, which is why I didn't have them higher. I think that they work. Because as you said, Weathers is someone I was willing to sack against last week. He's still, if we include that start, this is past 7 outings, still lets up plenty of impactful contact. The other reason I was not super high here is the weather. It is 67 degrees in San Diego, whereas outside of the Rangers and the Yankees game, most other games we want to stack have warmer weather for today. So those are the reasons why the Nationals were not as high on my list, but I think they're worth considering for sure. They get bumped down with no Schwarber. I know it's a lefty, but I do still bump them down with no Schwarber. So no Schwarber bumps them down. Weather bumps them down. The fact that they're not that great bumps them down. They're a consideration for me, but not super high on my list. But yeah, the way you phrase that is correct and in line with my thinking. Diffuse. How do you feel about David Dahl and Ranger stacks? He's kind of like a second tier guy in those stacks. I think that both he and Hicks are like that for me, where I think that Lowe, Garcia, Gallo are the core plays of a Ranger stack, and then Dahl and Hicks are like the others to consider for me. So I prefer to go with a 3-player stack and just focus on the good guys, but I think that Dahl and Hicks are at least in the discussion for me within those Ranger stacks. Jerry, what's up, Jerry? Maybe I missed it, but rate these stacks for me. Atlanta, Texas, and Miami. Who are your favorite for today, and how do you feel about Ian tonight? I like Ian. He is my top safe value play, not my highest upside value play. So Ian Anderson, to me, very good consideration. On board with him for sure. I would go Atlanta above Texas based on the way the Rangers lineup broke out. I wasn't super enthused with that, so we'll put the Rangers behind the Braves. The Braves lineup here, we've got Freeman. We got the big 3 up top. That's always good. Riley, Heredia, Swanson. Orlando Arcia, actually, I do want to mention him quick because I haven't looked at his numbers in the big leagues yet, but I remember he was on like this just disgusting tear in AAA. So let's actually check out what he's done since he came back up here, or came up, I guess, for the first time with the Braves specifically. And let's see. Let me show you his AAA numbers first because they're pretty fun. All right. Minor league numbers in AAA, 13 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 11% strikeout rate. What? He's hitting like Oswaldo Arcia. My favorite player of all time. Got to get an Oswaldo Arcia shout out in there if we can. Orlando's is coming back up. Only 2 games, but not a lot of strikeouts. That's good. See the contact profile, hitting the ball pretty well. So Orlando Arcia, I think if you're looking for like a value play, he is minimum salary. I think that if you want a guy who can save you a lot of salary, make it a lot easier to get to DeGrom, that's your guy. Orlando Arcia right there is someone I am abundantly willing to use for today. Let's see what Austin Riley is, $3,000. And can we put Acuna in there? I don't know. Maybe not. $2,850. We can make that work. So I think the Braves are a good stack. I love them. I think that Arcia is a great way if you want a min salary type guy, fully on board. So I love the Braves, Jerry. They're third for me behind the Phillies and the Reds, but I think they're in the same tier as those options for sure. So I like the Braves a lot. Miami, again, I'm not super into them because Gonsolin just doesn't let up a lot of balls in play. This is his 5 outings, 31% strikeout rate, 18% walk rate. I just don't think there's enough juice there for me to feel super good about stacking the Marlins there. Let's talk to DJ. Didn't India get hurt? Yeah, but he's back in there. I think he missed like 1 game potentially. So he's back. It's a good thing. And I think he's $3,300 for today. So I still prefer Suarez over him due to the upside, but he's in there. He's a consideration for sure. Jackie never misses a dinger Tuesday. He'll be betting. So yeah, Jackie is on board. I think if you're looking for because it matters like the overall number of home runs in the game. So if you want a game that will have a lot of home runs overall, let's see here. Good hitting weather in, probably honestly like the Cubs game. Nola's not as good on the road as he is at home. So I think you could justify going with that game. I think that's one to consider. So check out Didi. I think is probably an optimal guy for a Dinger Tuesday type promotion. Brad, top 2 pitchers, DeGrom 1 by a mile, and then Anderson or John Gray 2, depending on whether you want safety in Anderson or upside in John Gray. DJ is asking, the White Sox and Twins might not play. Yes, that game is a risk. Of the games in tonight's slate, that's the one that stands out as being a risk in terms of whether or not that game will play. Kevin Roth says it could be a delay. So be cautious if you want to use Rodon or Barrios, and I would not stack either team just because both the pitchers are pretty good, despite the fact, I guess actually it's cooler for today. I think it's 70 degrees in Minneapolis. It was like 95 yesterday. So a little bit cooler for today, weather in the area. So I'm probably just going to be avoiding that game unless we get a good clearance in the weather and I can go with Rodon as a pitcher. That is all that I have for today. But as you know, tonight is going to be a fun night because we've got some NBA back on the board. Here to talk about it is Erin Dolan. Erin is going to take your questions live on air to get you set for some NBA, the Bucks and the Suns. We're going to get all of her thoughts, whether you're watching YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter. Get your questions in now for Erin Dolan. So let's bring her on now to talk about game number 1. Erin, happy game 1 day to you. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am excited. To see how this game goes. Giannis upgraded to questionable.
Yeah.
It's a lot of intrigue leading up to tip. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you thinking Giannis will play or no?
Yes, I think Giannis will play. And I think this is kind of all a little hoopla before game 1 to kind of get things a little confusing for bettors.
Okay. So we're assuming that Giannis plays. What are your thoughts on this game under that assumption?
Under that assumption, I do think the Suns will win this game, but I think it could potentially be a lot closer of a game than we thought. In the first 2 games they played during the regular season, it was only a point that the Suns had won both those games by, so I think it could be a lot closer than we think.
All righty. Well, Erin, have fun tonight. Enjoy that and enjoy the Q&A. Appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, what's up? Erin here, ready to answer all your NBA questions. Sorry, I was fumbling a little bit at the beginning there with Jim because I unfortunately couldn't hear him for like 2 seconds. But anyways, I am excited to talk some NBA with you guys. As you know, I love the NBA. I feel like I've said NBA 50 times already on this stream. But let's get to some questions and talk about this matchup and talk about all the different lines that are available right now in the FanDuel Sportsbook. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this. And again, I'm going to answer as many questions as possible. So all you have to do is just comment them below and I will answer them. It's Mr. Jackie Moon already saying, Erin, I need some luck tonight. I think we all need some luck tonight. We always need luck in terms of betting. All right, let's look at the lines though. Right now, the Suns laying 5.5. So this line was as high as -6.5. It kept moving out because Giannis was doubtful for game 1. As you know, he just became questionable. Malika Andrews broke that news, and the line immediately moved down to Suns -5.5. As for the total, open 217.5 and continues to move up. It is now at 219.5. More money and bets coming in on the over there. And as for the money line, the Bucks moving down slightly to +198. Suns -240. I wouldn't be betting on that. But currently, when looking at where the money and the bets are coming in, it seems that 85% of the money and bets are on Phoenix money line. So I'm not sure who's betting that. Maybe you're putting it into a parlay. I hope you are because it's not great value at -240. As for the spread, we have 77% of the money on the Phoenix Suns and 61% of the bets on the Phoenix Suns to cover that 5.5 or 6.5. Of course, this is constantly updating and so are the lines. So sometimes it takes a little bit to catch up. But nonetheless, that's kind of where we're seeing money right off the bat for this game and where some of the lines are. So excited for that. You can also bet on the series, which we'll get into, player futures, boost, as well as many other things, and a lot of different markets that are available. When you have a game that is going to be in a championship type series, there are going to be a ton of markets that randomly become available. One, for example, that I noticed today, just to kind of show you an example, is Devin Booker's series point average, Brooke Lopez series point average. Those are 2 very, very random markets that probably weren't available in the last couple of series that we have seen. So you can kind of start seeing some things becoming available as well as top point scorer, most total rebounds, most total assists, and of course the most traditional NBA Finals MVP, which we've had up for a while now. And it's kind of funny. We had, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets all available when this market was up, and there were so many players. And now it's definitely dwindling. So we'll get into some of that. But first, just wanted to kind of talk about the series because I was doing some research, and it's quite interesting that either way in this finals, history is going to be made because one player in particular has only been in the finals before. Jay Crowder, he only played 6 games with the Miami Heat a year ago. There isn't a single player on either team that has won an NBA championship ring. That is a kind of wild thing to think about. Also, the Phoenix Suns have never claimed a title in their 53-season history. They're back to the finals for the first time since 1993. Was not born yet. Meanwhile, the Suns, first team to make the NBA Finals after missing the playoffs in each of the previous 10 seasons. And the Bucks, they won the NBA championship in 1971, have not been back to the finals since 1974. So it's pretty wild. Both these teams were pretty much unexpected to be here because, as I mentioned, we had the Lakers this year. We had the Clippers this year. We also had the Brooklyn Nets. And as we know, the Suns were the number 2 seed and the Bucks were the number 3 seed. And kind of the trail they had to get here, it has been quite interesting for both of these teams. But I definitely want to have you guys commenting who you think's going to win just in general and how many games. Because I feel like that's a big thing I've been seeing on Twitter all day is Bucks in 6, Bucks in 7, Phoenix Suns in 5, Suns in 6, 7, etc. But it seems like the odds makers are really thinking that this series is going to kind of go the distance. And we can see that when we look at the correct score, series total games, and the series spread. So right now, Suns minus 1.5 plus 118. And then for the Bucks, plus 1.5, minus 144. So I think this is going to be a tight series. I think you can also find some value. Let's say if you think Bucks in 5 for some reason. 5 games plus 240. And it ends up being Suns in 5 games. It doesn't matter because you bet this just in terms of how many games, not who won it in that many games. If you definitely think this is going the distance, plus 190 is still great value at 7 games, plus 200 for 6 games. So again, you can always, as I mentioned already on this show, find different value throughout the markets. If you, like I mentioned, think one of these teams is going to win in 5 or 6 games, that's better value plus 240 and plus 200 than, let's say, betting on the series spread, for example. We also can bet on the series correct score that's available. Also, series correct score after 3 games. This is pretty interesting. Bucks, that's obviously a heavy favorite, 12-1. But if you think the Suns are going to take the first 2 games at home, Milwaukee Bucks will come back in game 3, be able to win on their home floor. That's also still plus money there. So I think that's a lot of great value. But let's also see some questions, guys. Get to some of them. Mr. Jackie Moon saying Bucks in 7. You could take the Bucks in 7, like you just mentioned. That's plus 600 right now. Very great value if you think that's going to go there. And the distance, plus 7 games, plus 190. So right before the series starts, guys, a lot of plus money. And then after tonight, odds are going to shift pretty drastically. That's usually what happens in these series. Let's go to the player futures, though, and look at some of the value that's on the finals MVP. So as you can see, we have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, both on the Suns, and we have Giannis plus 500, 2-time MVP. Chris Middleton also behind, and Drew Holiday, both on the Bucks. As for Ayton, 24-1, Brooke Lopez, 65-1, Mikal Bridges plus 12,000. I would just write these off completely. I would even write off Middleton and Holiday because I think if the Bucks win, Giannis would win the MVP award. Now, as for the Suns, this one kind of stumps me a little bit in terms of Chris Paul or Devin Booker. It really depends on who plays better in this series. I would think they would give it to Devin Booker if he's, scoring the most points and really leading the team in terms of scoring. But at the same time, if Chris Paul is doing points, rebounds, and assists and kind of playing just as well and assisting the team in that way, plus his age and everything factored in, I could see Chris Paul also winning it. So it's kind of tough there. But I think for the Bucks, if you think they're going to win it, Giannis, I would bet as the finals MVP at plus 500. I think that is great value there. And then you can also NBA top point scorer, Devin Booker minus 125. You can bet into that. You don't want to bet Ayton minus 340. You could bet into Chris Paul minus 180 for the most assists. That's also just not the best value, though. I always kind of talk about taking plus money wherever you can. And then as for the series point average, let me find what these guys are averaging. Booker is at 28.5. He's averaging 27 this postseason. He averaged 25.5 against the Clippers. I would take under in terms of this, but again, it's never really fun to bet on the under. And if you think Devin Booker is going to have the most amazing series ever and he could win the finals, let's say 6-7 games with the Suns and then lead the team in scoring, maybe you want to take over 28.5. As for Brooke Lopez, I feel like this is a very, very random market. He is currently, averaging 13.5 points in this postseason. And I feel like that number is actually inflated because some of those games Giannis didn't play in the Eastern Conference Finals and Brooke Lopez had that one standout game. So I think this number is inflated just a little bit. I would definitely take the under 14.5 if I was betting into this market, which is why you see for the over, it's still a plus money. I mean, it's not crazy. It's only plus 100, but still, I think that's a market I'd probably just stay away from or just take the under on that. Let's get to some questions, guys. Please comment them below. Put out a tweet right now. Kind of get everybody else joining in here. We can go through some of the player props that I like for tonight as well. Let's see. Gotta love the player props. So many. All right. So let me go back into the game. As always, we have our same game parlay, guys, unique to FanDuel. Combine a bunch of stuff for the games. Absolutely should be doing this. And speaking of just a parlay really quickly, this was kind of up at the beginning of the show. A 16 parlay that hit yesterday, $20 turned into over $8,500. That's pretty crazy. Great way to end the holiday weekend, if you ask me. Oh, celebrate the 4th of July. Yeah, hitting a 6-leg parlay. I mean, that's pretty awesome. WNBA in there, some MLB. Love to see the action. I'm going to be so sad when the NBA is wrapping up. I'm going to be very, very sad because it's my favorite thing to bet on, aside from the NFL, obviously. And I'm ready for the NFL season. If anybody wants to talk about that, we'll be talking about that soon enough. All right. So as for the popular ones, we have the typical game lines, first basket score. Wanted to kind of talk about the first half spread. So I was reading some very interesting stats this morning. The Suns are 26-13 against the spread in the first half as home favorites. Right now it's -3.5. It's a +100. I like this first half spread -3.5. The Suns also finished with the most road wins in the league, which we need to keep in mind. And the only team that has done that so far has won the title in 8 of the past 13 seasons. So the Suns, good at home, good at covering the spread, also good on the road, also good at covering the spread on the road. As for the Bucks, they're mediocre in terms of against the spread. I'm not saying in general. In terms of against the spread, they've always been kind of mediocre. I feel like they do play a little bit better on their home floor, especially in the last couple series that we have seen. But in terms of the spread, Milwaukee 25-20 straight up on the road this season. And as I just mentioned with the Suns, they're 33-11 straight up at home, 27-17 against the spread this season, and have been unstoppable basically at home. So as for the first half, I like that -3.5. That's +100. I also think that this is a good bet in terms of, I don't feel comfortable with anything in terms of this spread because I think Giannis will come in this game and I think he will play. I don't think he will be 100%, obviously, because he didn't play in those Eastern Conference Finals games. And for a player like a 2-time MVP not to do that, obviously it was serious, the hyperextended knee. But since all the money and bets are coming in basically right here on the Suns, that makes me nervous for a game one. That makes me want to take the Bucks +5.5. I'm going to be honest with you. And if you were able to get them +6.5, kudos to you. But I do like the first half spread for the Suns. Sometimes I like to get in and out in terms of the spread. I've said that multiple times in terms of taking the first half. So that's what I would do in terms of that. I'm going to butcher this name. Mukul Pruthi. What's up? There you go. Mr. Jackie Moon saying Jay Crowder's birthday is today. Because of that, I'm taking him 5+3s. I did not know that. Are you sure it's today? I feel like I should check that. Jay Crowder birthday. Wow, it is today. And as I mentioned, he's the only player who has played in finals games. He played 6 games of the finals last year with the Heat. So he's the only one with experience tonight. Maybe he's going to have an absolutely dominant night. Wouldn't that be unreal for them? That'd be so cool. McCule, I'm going to keep messing that up. Hasn't Phoenix been amazing against the spread for first half props? Absolutely. I just kind of threw out this stat. Let me find it again. Suns are 26-13 against the spread in the first half as home favorites, which is pretty impressive. It's Mr. Jackie Moon again saying the under could be in play today with so many guys new to the finals. Absolutely. I love under 219.5. It keeps moving up. It opened 217.5, keeps getting bet up. We looked at the money and the bets coming in on the over. That's pretty heavy money there. Now, the reason I would say that people are betting the over is because when in this position, they're going to look at what happened during the regular season. The Suns and Bucks played twice. The Suns won both of those games by 1 point. Both those games flying over 219.5. But this is the NBA Finals. The nerves like I mentioned, there's only one player who's played in it. Nobody right now that is going to play tonight has won an NBA ring. So the experience and the nerves and the jitters, I can only imagine when everything is riding on the line. I think this game will be an under game. And since the line keeps moving up, I always talk about this, eventually you want to start betting the under, and sometimes you'll see that. So I like under 219.5. So I definitely think the under is the play for tonight. You never want to bet the under. It's not fun. I understand that, but I do think game one, I could see things being a little shaky. Let's see. Johnny R got the Bucks at +6.5. Love that. Great for you. Yeah, this line moved literally right away, down 1 point from -6.5 to -5.5 this morning. As soon as Malika Andrews dropped, that Giannis went from doubtful to questionable. I think he's playing. I know he wasn't at practice yesterday. He did a whole one-on-one thing with his coach that nobody was able to film or see what was going on. And I think that was a tactic. I truly think that was a tactic. But then we also have the opposite. When you take such a big key player and throw him back in the mix, sometimes there is a little bit of rust. But again, this is the NBA Finals. Everything's riding on this. Everyone's bringing their A game. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Boom shakalaka said nerves. Ha ha ha. Yes, I did say that. Let's see. It's Mr. Jackie Moon saying, I have a hard time betting the under for any props. I always want to root for players to have success. Yes, I'm the same exact way, but I actually do like some unders for props. I actually put this video on Twitter right before I came on. I made a quick video, threw it up there. As for props I like for tonight, first one, I like Ayton over 11.5 rebounds, -104 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. He's averaging 14 rebounds averaged 14 rebounds against the Clippers and also had 12 rebounds this postseason. So the fact that both those numbers are already over, I want to take him over for that. As for Middleton, under 26.5, because I think Giannis will play in this, and I think Drew Holiday will step up, have some points, and not have to rely solely on Chris Middleton. It's not like a game 6, a game 7. I don't think he'll have one of those standout performances. Also, he seems to only really play well at home to me. So he's averaging 23 points this postseason, but on the road, he's also averaging 23. So given that that's 3.5 points less, I just like the under on that one for some reason. As for another player prop quickly that I like, Chris Paul, points, rebounds, and assists. It's set at 34.5. I like the under, -115 right now. So he's averaging 31 for points, rebounds, and assists. But instead of looking at what he was averaging altogether, I looked at what he was averaging at home. That's 14 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. Obviously a much lower number than what's set at 34.5. So I like the under for that. Let's see. What else are we commenting here? Jim from softball, if you take tips from the books, I don't know what to say to you. So a big misconception here about me is that FanDuel gives me any type of picks or anything. I do all my own research. I do all my own picks. They never tell me one thing. I look up the lines. I go on covers. I look up trends. I look up where the money is and stuff. So anyone that thinks that the books are calling me and telling me what to do, that'd be a much easier job. I'm telling you, it really would be, but that's not the case and not what's going on here. All right, boom shakalaka, they are multimillionaires. I'm assuming that's a comment right back to what we were saying before. Yes, it's fun to be rich. Are the Bucks your dog of the day today? So I was really, really wanting to take the Bucks as my dog of the day. And I was about to, but the line had just shifted from 6.5 to 5.5 when I was recording it. So instead for my dog of the day, I went to the match 4 and chose to go with Mickelson and Brady because I thought it was a much more fun dog of the day. He's playing Bryson DeChambeau and Aaron Rodgers. And I was reading a ton of articles and everyone's like, DeChambeau is going to crush and so is Aaron Rodgers. But honestly, I was just like, you can't bet against Tom Brady. So I wanted to kind of just go with that as my dog of the day for today since I knew I'd be talking so much NBA. Boom shakalaka. I feel like every time I say that, I don't know if that's your I guess it's just the handle. I can't believe Suns and Bucks are finals teams. It's so weird. It is absolutely so weird. I was shocked when the Bucks won Game 7 in the Barclays Center. That was insane to me. I had no faith in them. And during the regular season, I talked a ton of smack on the Bucks because they weren't winning. They weren't covering as much as normal. And now here they are in the finals. And it went from the F is for fade to the F is for finals. And as for the Suns, I'm happy for them. I really, really like Devin Booker. And I think this is kind of Chris Paul's last opportunity to kind of change his legacy a little bit. But yeah, it is kind of crazy. It's Jackie Moon. It's close. Like you said, the overtime bet might be worth a few dollars. This is always really high odds. Yes, 14-1, no, minus 6,000. So obviously you would never bet the minus 6,000. As for the yes, 14-1, maybe throw some $5 on there, but I definitely wouldn't be putting a ton of money on there. Let's see. Ian Neverson saying Atlanta was giving away the game. Man, I hate the Hawks. It should have been Sixers versus the Bucks. It should have been. It's going to really haunt me for a long time. Mr. Jackie Moon saying, for some reason, I feel like it's going to be a 20-plus blowout. No idea which team, but that's just what I'm thinking. If you want to bet in terms of that, you could bet on margin, win margin, 10-point. You can go by bands. And if you really think that, there's some good value there. Let's see. Benjamin Cruz. I like the over on Brooke Lopez, veteran player, and won't be as pressured as Drew and Middleton. I'm assuming if you're looking at props, player points, let's see, Brooke Lopez, 15.5. It's hard for me to back Lopez until I see this game one and see how much Giannis plays and if he even does play. If not, obviously game two, everyone's going to be betting on Brooke Lopez. The rest of the team is going to have to take pressure off of Giannis. Interesting take. They could, okay. Sorry, there's so many coming in that my eyes now. Jim from softball, like you would admit anything anyways. You shouldn't even address my comment. Maybe they'll tell you that. FanDuel's not going to tell me anything because this is a live stream that I'm hosting and I'm able to pick which comments I want to talk about. I don't know why you're being so salty. It's a great day to be alive. We just had the holiday weekend. We had the NBA finals. We have the match going on. Get in a good mood, bro. Is Booker under 3 threes a decent prop tonight? He hasn't been shooting the three that well this season, especially in the playoffs. I'm not huge at taking the 3-point. Let me go to it. It's plus 122. Oh, excuse me, under you want to take. So you want 2 months plus many threes. I mean, that's minus 280 at that point. I just wouldn't ever bet that. This stream, Ian Neverson, is not giving FanDuel credit. I know on some of the streams that I'm on, especially the live ones with Rob Lopez, sometimes he gives some of the credit out, but currently on this one, I'm not giving that out. It's Mr. Jackie Moon. I honestly thought Giannis was going to be leaving after they got bounced in the playoffs this year. May not anymore. I mean, I think Giannis, there was a tweet that I saw, I think it was from 2017, talking about how he is going to be loyal and whatnot. And then obviously now he's in the finals. Also, Mike Budenholzer obviously was getting heat the entire season, also throughout the playoffs. But now they're in the finals, so I don't know what's going to happen to their coach as well. So we will see. Ian Neverson saying the Sixers blamed Ben for their mistake. Sixers got a lot of thinking and contemplating of what they're going to do next because they really need to figure it out. But we're not going to get into that. Got anything for baseball today? Jim Sonis was on right before. He was dealing everything with baseball, keeping this strictly NBA for now. Let's see. I think Bobby Portis is going to have a big game if Giannis doesn't play much. Interesting take. Yeah, I think obviously if Giannis doesn't play, his points, props, and stuff aren't available right now in the FanDuel Sportsbook. Let me see if sometimes they'll have first basket score. Just for fun now. More players obviously are always going to step up. We saw this in that first game that Giannis didn't play in when I think it was 4 players had over 20 points in that one game. So, and then the conversation was, are the Bucks better without Giannis? It was such a crazy morning after that first game that Giannis didn't play in the Eastern Conference Finals. But obviously players are going to have to step up in absence of Giannis, kind of get those points up as well. But he is listed as questionable and the line did move. As for Chris Paul and Devin Booker, they're both going to have to really facilitate the ball well, shoot well. The Bucks need to shoot better as well. They shot better in the regular season than they have in the finals. So that's something that they're going to have to work on. All right, we have about 1 minute left. Super Dave, can you check Ayton points, please? I'm leaning towards over. Player points, Ayton. He's at 15.5, and he's averaging so far in this postseason, let me see, 16. So considering the over is minus 122, I like it. I always like betting on Ayton. I think he's been great. So I think if you like that points at 15.5, I think you should go for it and definitely bet it on the FanDuel Sportsbook. All right, last couple of 30 seconds here. Actually, let's go through before I let you guys go. Some of the odds boosts that are available for tonight's game. So we have the 3x2 parlay, and this is cool because now you can parlay this 2 3-pointers made in the first and second half. 2 or more scored in the first 3 minutes of both the first and second half. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Chris Paul to record 20-plus points and the Suns to win game 1. That's boosted to plus 200. Suns to lead at the end of every quarter versus the Bucks. That's a plus 190. All these available right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And as always, we always have the promotions going on. And if you were smart, you would love the NBA Finals comeback bonus and the NBA Finals risk-free same-game parlay. You would do the same game parlay because I think that's one of the most fun and unique things that FanDuel has going on. Anything with the SGP you can add together and make your bets. I gave my 3 prop picks that I like for tonight. And as I told you, like the under 219.5. I also think that there is a chance that the Bucks can cover in this one, but I do like the Suns in the first half minus 3.5. So that's kind of all the picks that I have for you today. And then I will be back on tomorrow, and we're going to bring on one of the traders at FanDuel to talk about how the series prices have shifted after this game 1. Hopefully you guys win all your bets tonight. I'll be talking on FanDuel Sportsbook Instagram account, probably at like 8:30 to 8:45. I'll jump on there and be talking all things leading up to it, probably talking about the last blinds, what they lock it at right before tip-off. So it'll be good. You guys can catch me on there. It'll be on the FanDuel Sportsbook Instagram account page. Have a great night, everybody. Make sure to get on FanDuel, play some of those bets, and best of luck to you guys.